I am in so many fun shows. I feel so just fortunate to be able to do what I do. But particularly in One Piece, I'm Nami, the bossy navigator. I'm sorry, the navigator with leadership skills. I love money. And I'm Ochako in My Hero Academia, which I've been in this industry 18 years. I've never had a show kind of blow up the way My Hero has, and I feel like it couldn't have happened to a nicer show. It's just such a great show. I love that it's such an ensemble piece. There's so many different characters for people to love and really root for. I just am ecstatic to be a part of the show.
And superhero movies have really come into their own in these past 5-10 years. And it's a really great time for this series because it's a far cry from when we had that first Green Lantern movie. The culture has shifted dramatically in quality. But yes, my name is Marcus Stimac, so thankful to be here with all of you today. In One Piece, I play Dr. Hogback, and I also play young Goldie Roger. And in My Hero Academia, I play Tiger of the Wild Wild Pussycats. And yeah, so we've worked on many wonderful shows, but I know that this is definitely a group that has been targeted for those shows, and Tokyo Ghoul as well, or maybe some others. But
and you can ask us anything. It doesn't have to be about My Hero or One Piece or Fairy Tail. I'm young Natsu in Fairy Tail. That's the second time I've been a young Todd Haverford. The first time I'm young Alan in D. Gray Man. Yes. As well as Lena Lee.
so yes, we will take some questions.
How often do you get asked to record voicemails for people?
How often do you ask to get recorded voiceovers for people, voicemails?
Not as much as we used to. I think because now more people are charging for them. But I still remember back in the day when it would be anime conventions and they would come, you would get 20 DVD covers and be taking photos and be doing voicemail messages for people. But it's not as much these days.
Yeah, I would say especially if you have a character who does like a really wacky voice that is memorable, maybe people will ask you for that, but rarely if you play a sinister murderer, people are like, please leave my outgoing message to frighten away my friends and family. But yes, people have asked for that, and I agree. I have been only involved in voiceover the past 7-8 years. But for the conventions, I just started doing 4 or 5 years ago. And I have been asked to do some voicemails. Dr. Hogback does a really weird voice, so sometimes I do bust that out for people. But more or less, I would get asked a lot for video greetings and things like that are more popular, or sometimes I'll get a message on Twitter if someone has a birthday and their friend is really a big fan, maybe I will record a little message and send to them, and things like that. But I don't think a lot of people use voicemail as much anymore.
Oh, you know what? That's legit.
Once voicemail is full, I clear them out quickly, but then sometimes it just fills up. And, if you really need to get in touch with me, usually email or call or text is the best way. But, yes. Any other questions? We have one right here.
Luci!
What I've heard, a lot of voice actors like to drink tea because a lot of times you have to scream and really kill your throat. So I'm just curious on whether you guys think that or not. Whenever you're doing like a very powerful moment, it really you might need to take something.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yes. Yes. Really, water is the best thing for when you're vocally working hard. But yes, there's that, and you can get it everywhere. It's the traditional medicinal throat coat. That's my favorite one to drink when I am working, especially if I'm doing like audiobooks or things that are really long form that I'm reading for a while. It really is lovely.
At Funimation, they have a little basket of different things that you can try, and some of them are from varying ethnic stores, Asian stores. They have really great throat ginger drops or different syrups that you can take to help you if you're going to have a very intense session, because you know that if you're going to do an intense character, you don't usually try to schedule a full 8-hour session. It can be very difficult on your voice, so maybe if you have a very difficult character, you would try to break up certain recording sessions that you would have a lot of screaming on or put a lot of duress on your voice. And I would say that also, because let's say you do a lot of screaming and yelling in an episode, it may change the quality of the sound of your voice when you're finished with those moments. So you may be kind of hoarse, and to keep things kind of consistent, you always want to be mindful of how much stress you're putting on your instrument. Not only when you're recording voiceover, but definitely, you do live shows or different things like that. You always want to try to find ways to take care of your voice, get lots of rest, and drink lots of water, because it's pretty strenuous, I'm sure she can tell you.
It really is. And you learn different things. Like you learn when you're screaming, if you put a little H sound in the beginning, like instead of going, ah, and where you're just, if you kind of go, ha, it is gentle. I don't know, it works into your voice so you have more longevity. You learn little tricks like that. Also, the directors have gotten really smart and kind. They've always been kind, but they usually will save the main screaming stuff until the end of the session. So you can get all the words out, get all the words done that you need to get done before you start blowing bits of your throat out of your body.
And also, I would say that they do a good job of, so a certain line you may be asked to do again and again in different variations, different speeds, and with a lot of the yells, they really try to do a good job of communicating how they want it to sound, so that you're not like trying it 3, 4, 5 times, where they're like, oh, why don't we try that one more time? This time, a little bit more crazy. But I mean, some characters, you have to be able to really go there and yell loud, and in the big crisis moments or moments of challenge or evolution, give it full vocal duress, because as you all know, the great Hallmark animes like Dragon Ball and One Piece, they have these great moments bigger than life, and you really have to sell all out to match the level of the passion, the storytelling. And if you don't, it's really cheapening the performance. So we do try to go all out, but we try to take care of ourselves as well. So thank you for that question. I'd like to open it up to any other questions as well.
Yes.
So I've been talking a lot about the TV show, and every time waiting in the summer, where you play the critter moving on. Kind of curious, what exactly is the script for a character like that? Walking through your character is like no lines that match. What exactly is like the direction and all that?
So the question is like, when like some of the shows that we played, we're like critters, and he's saying, what are the scripts like when you walk in and you have your character doesn't have any lines, but they're a critter, and what does that look like? So I can say that there's a show that came out this year called what is it about the jewels? Can anybody help me? Land of the Lustrous. And my character went from being like a snail monster to like a snail, and then it became a talking snail, and then it became like a water nymph, and it was all the same character. So it was literally like snail monster, rawr sounds, and I just kind of said rawr sounds to picture. And so you're just watching it going, and watching it. And then it's like a little snail talking. I mean, it's just, and sometimes it'll be like squeak, audible squeak, curious squeak, distressed moaning. I mean, and you just kind of interpret interpret that however it looks, how it should look with the picture.
Absolutely, because they really are bringing you in to help bring this thing to life. And you are communicating with the director, but that happens quite a bit. So like if you've ever seen anything like Overlord, or we just did, played this ogre in this giant mythic fairy tale type setting anime. You have whole races of people that may look humanoid or have different characteristics that need to sound differently, but it really depends on the drawing, and there will be parentheses of very humorous adjectives to kind of guide you in the way. And because not all goblins sound the same. And you'd be like, you're crazy to say that, but once you've been in anime quite a long time, it's like, and also, I had to direct my friend on some bits of One Piece where he was going to be a baby dinosaur that hatches out of an egg. And this actor is a very reverent old man, Shakespearean classical actor I've worked with countless times. And I thought when he came into the booth to do extra bits that it was going to be some regal senator or some dignitary or something to that effect. And he's like in there, taking off his glasses, like getting ready to do the voiceover, and I pull up, and it's a little pink dinosaur that comes out of an egg, and it's like, and you're just like, and it's got like 3 or 4, and whenever you're covering for someone, you always try to take multiple takes for safety to give them options. And it is, but also you're like looking at this actor who's waiting for this great, respectful role, and you're like, all right, give me this big baby dinosaur poking out of the shell, just a little give me some high squeakies.
Yeah.
And then you're like, that was great, Mark, maybe do that again this time, a little more, but you have to be flexible when you are called in, you don't know what you're going to play. You can always make assumptions based on things you've worked on before. But even if you finish a character you've done a long time early, that director may ask you to fill in as something that would not be recognizable for some bits in his show. He may say like, oh, thanks, you're done early. Could you actually be these little mice people in this show? And then you're like, yeah, of course, but you don't want to be found out, so you gotta change things up. But that's part of being a voice actor, is whatever the creature, whatever the magic, and whatever the transformation, trying to give it a different effect, And they will on their end do different pitching sounds. They can do different ways to disguise or effect on your voice, So just give them a good baseline. Any other questions? How did you get to be a voice actor? Well, I was actually doing a lot of local theater acting with some people who were already voice acting. So Funimation is based in Flower Mound, but I live in Dallas. And I had always been a big fan of anime growing up, but I was not really privy to any information of how that was put together. Things have totally changed now of how you can access anime, but also how people put together their own fan-made projects and what technology you have available in your own home. And there are things that we can record at our houses and different things like that. But back in the day, it was not very much like that. When I first got into the auditioning, I had a friend who I was doing a Shakespeare play with named Tasha Munoz. She's a very great actress. She's done a lot of good parts. She had her friend Chris Bevins coming to our play. And I got to meet Bevins at the play, and he actually put me in touch with Tyler Walker for an audition for Fairy Tale. I tried out for that. I got a small part in that, then began to do a lot of different small parts for directors. That is really your true audition, is when they have you in to play different captains, messengers, things like that. Even though that is not a big part to you, that is where you're showing them that you have the techniques available. They don't want to trust someone that has no work experience with a significant part. So you have to be diligent, you have to be available, and you have to always be professional and courteous. But I would say, so I auditioned and started doing some small parts, and I got in through some of my friends who I was acting with.
That is the truth. The bits, they do a lot of Walla sessions, that's how directors are figuring out what you're able to do. And I did not know I was going to end up in this at all. I could not have planned my career. I thought I was a big theater nerd and snob, and I was just going to go from, I got my master's degree at LSU in Baton Rouge, go Tigers, and I moved to Houston to make enough money to go to New York, because I just knew I was going to be on stage. And when I got to Houston, I got hooked up with an agency there who was still my agent, and I started booking voice work, like commercial work and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, well, this is a fun way to pass the time. This is great. Voice work is fun. And lo and behold, there was a company called ADV Films in Houston that I got an audition for, and I did not know what anime was, you guys. I did not even know. But I hit there. I went home and told my roommate I was awful at dubbing, that they would never have me back, surely. And the following week I came in and read for a show called Full Metal Panic. And I did not have I did my bit on Neo Ranka, except I went away going, well, that was horrible. What a terrible experience. I was terrified. I didn't know where to look. I didn't know whether to watch the screen or the script. We had paper scripts back then. But then I was given this lead role in Full Metal Panic out of the blue sky, and thought, I hope with everything in me that nobody knows that I don't know what I'm doing. That was 18 years ago, and it has worked out. You know, it has worked out. But that is how I got into this industry. And I remember going online. I mean, that was probably back when there was still dial-up. I went on, I was like, I'm going to do a little more research on anime and this show. And that's when I realized that there were entire communities of people who would review our work. And Anime News Network, you know, I went there and I was like, oh no, oh whoa! And that was my initial foray into how I got in. That's right. That's exactly right. And in fact, I was at a convention just like this where I met Mike McFarland, who said, hey, I just watched Full Metal Panic. I really love your work. I'm working on a little show called Full Metal Alchemist. And I'm wondering if you would like to come up to Funimation in a couple of weeks and do an episode character as a paid audition. So that is the very best way to get to go work somewhere. I got to go play Siren, she's a thief, in Full Metal Alchemist, and that was kind of my audition at Funimation.
And I would also say, so she was saying about voice acting. Voice acting is not only limited to what we do in our anime. There's a lot of different things that come into voice acting, like commercial work, different industrial reels or narration, or different commercials in terms of radio sweepers or bumps, in terms of station identification, things like that. Every bit of voice acting requires different skills. It may not be the same skills that you would use performing a full-length live performance, but they're very different and very specific. And they carry over. That's why a lot of people who have traditional stage experience work so well. They're very flexible, and they have the ability to adjust to all different styles of readings. But I would say if you do want to get involved in voice acting, you want to pursue all the different opportunities available to you, maybe even working on different fan projects or collaborating with people for the opportunities that are available to you. And also begin to familiarize yourself with the process, the technology. It's really not something you can just jump right into, because even when you're recording an audition, there's tons of things that go into how you make the audition sound in the right way, how you align all your equipment and all that. But I'd say if you want to be involved in voice acting or any form of acting, the best way to do it is try to get involved locally with anyone who is doing play, things like that, or pursue classes, lessons, things like that. Any other questions?
Get into the role. Do you ever get lost in a character or start acting like them afterwards?
Probably not. Sometimes my voice kind of gets stuck in certain registers.
Yes.
That can be real. And there's certainly been some shows that were affecting enough that I took that away. Do you know what I mean? Like I remember back when we recorded Clanad or Clanad, however you want to say it, it was super easy to be like, you know, and to leave with this very bittersweet. That show was just so moving. Certainly Princess Tutu, there's video evidence of me on YouTube bawling my head off watching the end of that show. Just openly weeping. I was just affected by it. So yeah, I mean, in that kind of way, I get lost in a sense.
I would say a lot of times I may do a rumination or a phrase that comes out like a character in my life where something may happen and I may just stop off, you know, or, how could this happen, you know. But I don't really take a lot of the character with me. I do when I see the thing finished, then it does resonate very strongly with me. I have seen a lot of the things put together and really been taken back through all my fandom experience. And you get to see a lot of the other people's deliveries. There's a lot that goes into putting together one of these shows. That, for example, certain actors may have already recorded their bits before you have recorded, so you're acting off nobody. Certain actors may have already recorded, so you have them. But you may work with someone for several years in a show and not have seen them, or only seen them a few times, because you don't always work at the same time, and you know. It's really great when you can all get together and hang out and do like events like these. But when you think back on all of the things you have done, yet the characters really do stick with me. I begin to think about the process and the journey of how fortunate I am to have come to do some great parts and what it was like working with the great directors. But you know, we are working on so many things currently that you don't really get too hung up on the past. You are always thankful for the experiences you've had and the opportunities. But as you all know, we're doing simultaneously. We have a lot of new shows coming up, new characters to wrap our heads around and stuff like that.
And you know, I will say, I've gone back. I finally got the Funimation app. I just bit the bullet and paid to have the Funimation app. Because I wanted to be able to watch things so that I could talk about them well at conventions. And so now I'm hooked on a few things, and I've gone back and I started watching One Piece from the beginning. It has been a long time since I've seen all of that, and I was taken by how everything comes together in the beginning of the journey. They have however many, 800, 900 episodes, you know, but just, and that does make me feel proud and nostalgic and so lucky. And for my hero, something, a story I wanted to tell just before we go on, because we were talking about simuldubs, which is a totally different thing than we used to do. I still remember back when I got in that it was, you would record the first 4 episodes of the first volume of whatever for DVD release, and now we have simuldubs. But I live in Houston, and so I'm 4.5 hours from the cool cats in Dallas. I was not auditioning for simuldubs, just because I couldn't be up there every week. I couldn't commit to that. So I was doing One Piece and some things here and there, but I was not auditioning for anything new. Except, I was up there working on One Piece, and I heard everybody in the building buzzing about this show that was auditioning that day, and it was my hero. And I was like, what's going on? And I heard just a little bit about the show, and I sure did go to Colleen Klinkenbeard's office, and I was like, Hi, can I read for this one? And she was so cool. She was like, would you read for this one? That would be awesome. And it's worked out because it is also a simuldub, but because the show is what it is, it has so many characters in it. It's not like Ochako carries the entire show. She's not Deku with the line load. And so I generally record 2 episodes at a time, so that I don't have to come up every week. I can come up every other week and make it work. That's just a little tidbit about simuldubs.
So you have your daughters watching some?
My kiddos are watching Princess Tutu right now, and they are watching My Hero. We're still in the first season, and I'm having to be really judicious because it's kind of violent. There are things, but I'll tell you, they're 9 and 7, and so they're still in that thing when like Mount Lady comes on. They're like, "Mom, what is she wearing?" And Momo, they were like, "Her outfit is whoa," and I was like, "But that's Momo." But her quirk is awesome. Oh wait, I mean, yes, she is showing some skin, but it's anime, so they're just on the cusp. They're just. They have not seen Miss Midnight yet. We have not gotten there yet. Yeah, not yet. And they're like, they're like, Bakugo is so angry. Mom, he needs a therapist. Don't be ashamed.
Any other questions? Oh, we have one in the front here.
Yes! Oh, so... You guys, has anybody who's asking about a show called Bloom Into You? Has anybody seen that show? You guys, do yourself a favor. It's a lovely show. David Wall directed it. So, yes, and it was Sentai Filmworks is kind of playing with simuldubs. I don't know that that's the route they're going to keep going, but it was a lovely show to work on. And that's one of the shows that's come out. I feel like Japan is investing more in more LGBTQ, all of it, that are really nuanced. And this is just a really gorgeous one. It's lovely. And it's so universal. It could be a boy and a girl, but it's a girl and a girl. And it's that story of universal, like when you like someone in high school and you just are figuring out how to say that and do that and let people know. And it's so awkward and beautiful. And I was honored to be in that show. Yeah, I don't know that I approached her any differently. Just that, I certainly took David's direction. But yeah, she's a really confident girl who is, again, just like so many of us are in high school, where you just do not know how to be. You don't know how to be when it comes to who you like, you know.
Or even when you're an adult.
Or even when you're an adult.
You still don't know what you like.
That is exactly right. Amen to that. A to the women. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I am so excited to be in Fruits Basket. For those of you who don't know, they just announced it. I am Hiro in Fruits Basket. I was not in the show the first time around, and I am so excited to be announced. And the way we have done it is, so far, I'm just going up when I meet it. He's not in every episode. So the way they kind of do it is, and in fact, Marcus may know even more than me. I feel like it's kind of like they produce for about a week or two, and then before it airs.
They try to be, they have a little bit of wiggle room between two episodes, the one they're working on and the one that is about to come out, when they're finishing the one and recording the one that is about to come out. And
yeah, and so I've already recorded some of him, and when I left, Caitlin was like, "That's not the end, but we'll see you another time." But I don't think it wasn't the following week, because he's not in the whole show. So they're kind of working as you go, but one episode will be in production at a time. Does that make sense?
And that can be really great and really tricky as well, because you may not know the direction the series is going to go when you're picking certain people. Sometimes you're picking people who are the best available, but also you're picking people you want to use, but you may want to save people as well. For example, if you use a actress that you think will be one of the main characters, and then in the second episode they no longer appear.
They died.
Then it, you know.
It's
that also works in your favor when someone's like, hey, I have this guy who's just going to be a little bit, would you do it? And I say yes, and then it's like, oh, I'm in every episode now. So, we have a question right here.
Seeing the final product, do you guys, because you guys put a lot of emotion into it, do you guys still have that same emotional reaction after watching that kind of product?
Yes, I mean, I think that's when it all comes together. We are literally, like, when people say, what's it like working with Chris Patton, or what's it like working with Mark, or whatever, we never work together. And so we don't see each other's work until the thing is fully realized. And yes, I mean, that's where you go, oh, what a great show. Wow. I mean, I loved My Hero while we were doing it. But until I watched everything all together and saw how it all fits together, and then you see, oh, wow, the fans are going to love this because I love all of the heroes. And if I do, surely other people do.
And we do not see the whole script. We do not see anything really before it happens. So, like, they will not email you and be like, hey, this is the stuff that is about to happen. There is a way that you can figure out if you can watch the subtitled stuff ahead, but there is no even guarantee what you will be recording in terms of, like, what episode they're on. But when you are seeing the script, this is the first time and you are acting right now. It is not like, take this script, go in the back once you are ready, and that is with everything. The character, you will see it drawn, and you will have that we are here to record right now. It's not like, take this drawing, go in the bathroom, do some crazy voices. When you're ready, come back in here. Let's see what you got. They want you to be trying all these things and ready to rock and roll. But so, they don't tell you what's going on in the script, and you're scrolling down and you are really hearing our first reactions. If you see a character who is genuinely surprised at an integral moment, there is a good chance that that actor is just seeing he's going to die right now, or other things like that. And you watch the show, but you don't know what delivery they are going to take of your lines. Here's another thing, is when you're seeing it, you do a few takes, and they may think a bunch of them are good for different reasons, and you get to see, like, you may remember the emotional moments because you will go through it 4 or 5 times, and you'll remember that heavy recording day. Now you're watching it, you are looking to see, and you're like, oh, how they decided to put it all together went well. And then, some stuff you do and you think is going to be really bad, and all the fans are like, this is incredible. And then sometimes you're like, I did something really incredible, and you look out your window and it's pitchforks and torches. But, yeah, so, when you see it again, you relive it, but also, it's great to see your friends in it as well. Any other questions? We see the one right here, glove.
What's the most challenging role?
Wow, most challenging role you ever had?
Probably Medusa from Soul Eater was not easy. That was not easy for me. That's not my normal range, and so she was kind of tough. But I loved her, and I loved how she's so bad, like so good and just so bad, and she does not care what you think about her mothering. But I love that. That's probably the hardest. Also, there was a boy I played, I've mentioned it at this con, I can't believe I've talked about it so much, in this weird show called Magical Shopping Arcade Abanabashi. And Sashi was hard. He was hard. It's a wonderful show. It's a weird show. So good. But his voice, sustaining his voice, we did a lot of talking in that show. And that was super challenging. My director was also very exacting. He's a great dude. And he would tell you that he was crazy and exacting.
You guys can't leave. You can't. This is mandatory.
What was your hardest, Marcus?
Well, so
Challenging, most challenging.
I mean, as you all know, every role brings its own challenges, but for me, the roles that scream the most are challenging on my voice. That is significant. So I do Dr. Hogback One Piece. That is very stylized voice, no pitches, no effects. And I do very intense. If you haven't heard it, it's kind of like this, and it's all over the place. And it changes pitch with the Japanese. That's how the guy did it, and that's something Mike McFarlane really wanted. But back when we were doing that recording, that was when you would do a whole DVD series in a couple of weeks. So it's now when I'm called to record, I may have 1 or 3 hours, depending on which episode it is or how much there is in that one episode. But in One Piece, that was back when they're like, he has 40 hours for you.
Yeah.
When are you available for these over the course of the week? And so when we were doing that many hours a day in such a strange voice, and One Piece is very hysteric, character, so it was very demanding, but also working with Mike McFarlane, who I had a tremendous amount of respect for. I was an anime fan, big into Dragon Ball, big into Case Closed, and all these different things he had worked on administratively and as a talent. And to work with him as a newer talent was not necessarily intimidating, but you want to do your best work because you're trying to make a good impression and also find your footing as an artist. So I would say the earlier experiences for me overall are more challenging. I feel much more comfortable now.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Favorite ever. Oh, man. Well, my first favorite show, and everybody has them. It doesn't mean I don't love other shows. But my very first favorite thing was Princess Tutu. And it was my first favorite show. I mean, it's the show that made me love anime. Do you know what I mean? That was it for me. But I'll tell you right now, like I said, I've been a part of wonderful shows. I've had a tremendous work career. I can't even believe it. But I've never gotten to be a part of a show like My Hero. That I love my character and I love everybody I play with. I really truly feel like my peers in that show are fantastic. And everybody is so flippin' good. I'm just so proud of our product, And the Japanese is wonderful, and so is our dub. It's just wonderful. I love it.
Well, yeah, favorite parts, especially being a part of a great franchise. We work on so many shows, and all of them are great, but there are some that you really want to be a part of. It would be a privilege if you would be offered the opportunity to audition or even land a character on those. And so, the great ones, Ghost in the Shell, My Hero, Dragon Ball, when they are not only a great opportunity, but it is a great compliment to your own ability as an artist and how far you've come to have an opportunity to try out for these shows. So I really love those. My favorite show to do the voice of, I really had a good time working on Assassination Classroom. I did the voice of Trotsky in that. And then also Ping Pong the Animation is lesser known. 12 episodes sports anime, very good. You need to see that one. I really enjoyed working with Chris Bevins on that. And we had, it was a very realistic slice of life show, a very intense, soulful acting, I would say. Because not every role demands the same level of detail. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you're playing an orc creature in the forest who's about to get sliced in half by a protagonist, it requires a little less digging than some of these great roles you're doing. But I would say my favorite roles, yeah, definitely probably Assassination Classroom.
While we're talking about favorite things, though, I just want to put a plug in for one of my favorite shows is not where I am the lead per se, but there was also a weird little show called Azumanga Daioh. That is such a funny, weird, the timing of that show is just different than everything else. And I play a really awful teacher named Yukari Tanizaki, and it's just best teacher ever. That show is so good. Yes.
A show I had really fun time working on, but it's not my favorite, but it's growing on me, and we're having a new season coming up. It's totally going to become one of my favorites, but it's so recent. You know, it was Cheel School Road. You got to see the Cheel School Road. We've been working on that. It's very fun. And also a show I had a great time working on, only in small capacity, was when we did Space Dandy. We did Space Dandy. It was super fun time for our company. We had different guest artists highlighting for all the cameos, and they're all different styles, and it was one of our first simul-dubs, and it was really one of the first ones to come out at the same time, and it was unlike anything we had ever done. We were doing a lot of different characters, we were playing a lot of different parts, and we had so much fun getting together as well. Every time that would be coming out, we would be getting together at different people's houses, and whenever I think about my time working up there, that first season of Space Dandy, when we were all having such a fun time, was really great. So, any other questions? So we got some in the back here. Go ahead.
All right. What is your most favorite character you voiced, and least most favorite character you got?
Well, we will cover least favorite.
I can't do it! Only because whoever I say is somebody's favorite thing. I cannot squash it. I can't squash other people's favorite thing.
My least favorite
Marcus is here for the tea.
You know, I was in a show called Gangster. I played Delico in that. And I liked that show a lot. And I was very honored to be a part of that show. But, you know, that was one of my least favorite characters to do, because I'm routinely asked why I voiced him the way I did. And I will just say, if you ever meet a voice actor, it's not very professional to ask them about specific qualities of the product, because there's a lot of collaboration that goes into how people do all of these voices, and all the style based on the Japanese are also the differences, you know. But I'm very thankful to have had that opportunity. But, you know, my most favorite role is being up here and having this incredible weekend with all of you fans who are dedicated and have brought so much life and attention to our products. And we've really had a fantastic time meeting all of you.
So fun.
So we'd like to take another question as well.
Do you have any funny or weird con stories?
Funny or weird con stories?
I have some con stories. My funniest story right now is not a con story, but it is an anime story. If you ever think that we are or you wonder what happens, like where we work, we're highly professional people, except that I am a person who loves scare videos. It is a character flaw, you guys, okay? But I will laugh all day long at people falling down and people getting scared. I cannot handle it. So I did this thing very recently where I was working with Kyle Jones and our wonderful engineer, Ricardo. And we were on break. And I was like, I'm totally gonna scare Kyle. I've known these people for a long time. But like a dork, like I'm not a woman in my grown body, I got under, like here's the director's desk, I got under the desk. And I'm crouched under the desk, waiting for him to come back, because I know Ricardo is gonna love it, and it's gonna be great. So Kyle comes back in, not Ricardo, he comes in and he sits down and he pulls up to the desk. And then he just sits there, and Ricardo doesn't come back. And the longer the time goes by, the weirder it feels. Like it gets really weird. And so finally I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I just reached out and went, ha! And I grabbed his ankles. And he went, oh! S-word. And the thing that came out of his mouth was, I'm really glad I didn't work just now. And that was awesome. That's what I do when I'm at work.
Wow, I can't top that. There's a lot of funny things that happen with these people are great, and they reveal a lot of sides to you as you especially begin to travel and hang out. But You know, we leave funny messages to each other in the booths when we record, and you may think that you're in a very serious scene and about to do your next line, and the guy setting you up for your delivery will say something really grotesque or obscene to throw you out. So we do things like that. One time my friend Jeremy Inman had a big bottle of Patty's, which is this fancy whiskey, and there's like only this much left. And I had taken it. We were at this white elephant thing. And I was gonna drink it with my buddy Austin Tyndall. And Inman is looking for this Patty's, and he is saying loudly, he's like, has anyone seen what this whiskey is in? Like, this much left in it, it's gone. And everyone's not really paying attention, and he's just like, keeps railing about it. And he begins to make everyone search the white elephant bags, and that is where I put it. I had it like in my white elephant bag, and the only way to avoid being discovered was to volunteer to search the bags. I was like, I'll search these bags, Inman. We're gonna find out what happened to his Patty's. You know, I didn't find it. And like, things like that.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, he does know. I've told him that story many times.
Yes.
If you two weren't voice actors, could you see yourself doing anything either inside or outside of the industry?
Yes, absolutely. I like acting and directing. I love doing the voice acting, but I do a lot of stage work as well, like film and commercial television work. And I'd also be interested in more of administrative duties, arts administration. I would try to find a different way. You know, I have a lot of different interests, whatever opportunities were available.
I was going to be a journalism major. I really wanted to be, ever since I was young, I had a heart for the underdog and a heart for exposing like injustice and stuff like that. And I was going to be a journalism major until I was offered a scholarship to change my major to theater. So I like to believe that I would write if I wasn't an actor. I guess I could still write.
I'm very interested in writing, pursuing more time for writing. I do a lot of teaching as well, and that's something I would be interested in. Acting is an industry that is always changing, and what it requires of you and what you have to put in. But, you know, there's always time to do other things. You know, it's never a 24-hour-a-day job. The opportunity is there to make it that, but if you are an actor or an artist of any kind, it is important to have balance in your life. And have hobbies, have time to relax, have time to focus on things that are important to you other than your business. Right?
Yes. And I'm here to tell you that when I was making my daughter's princess tutu outfit, and I was wrapping the wire for the amulet and hot gluing feathers on this thing, I looked up at my husband and I was like, do I need to have an Etsy store where I am making cosplay? Just saying. I think we should keep our options open.
I would buy your stuff.
I would buy it all.
We have time for maybe one or two more questions, so we take it right here in front.
So I have one for Marcus and one for Luci.
Okay.
So starting off with Marcus, who did you play in Fairy Tale?
In Fairy Tale, I played Warcry and Zoldio. One is in the Grimoire Heart, and the other is in the Wild Four.
And for Luci, was it hard voicing Honey for a more high school?
Oh, Honey was kind of hard to voice. Only because he is a nugget. He is the cutest thing that's ever been drawn. And I was afraid I wouldn't do him justice, I'll be honest. But I loved him. And I knew that the title was, people were really looking forward to the title. And in fact, I think when they announced it at AX that year that we all went, they did a big cast announcement. And I wore, Travis Willingham is Mori. And so we switched, I wore his coat. And if you know, I'm this, and Travis is this. And I came out on his back wearing his coat. It was pretty great. No, I loved voicing that. And I recently, when I took a hiatus from conventions for about 5 years when my kids were little. And when I came back, I realized that there was still so much Oron love, and I had not watched it in years. So I went home and watched it, and immediately texted Caitlin, like, thank you for the gift of this show. You know, we are nothing without the directors who give us these opportunities, you know? And so I was like, thank you for the gift of honey, and thank you for that.
Both of you did a great job in those roles.
Thanks.
Oh, well, thank you. That's a great compliment. Yes, we like to take, all right, you.
If you drop soap on the floor, does the floor get clean or does soap get dirty?
The soap gets dirty. Next question.
So you both kind of grew up as like aspiring artists and actors. Were there any people that were like influential you growing up, like that you wanted to be like? Or?
Well, I grew up in little towns all over Texas. So, I mean, I did theater. Theater was the first thing I was ever naturally good at. I was never good at sports or anything like that. I was a reader, and then it turned out I was good at theater. But I never knew anybody who did it as a living. So I had movie stars that I looked up to, I guess. And I had dreams, but it seemed so insurmountable that I would ever get to do it for a living. That it's really sort of miraculous that happened the way it did.
I had seen some shows when I was young live that were very incredible to me, and also I was very fortunate to have great adults around me in my educational institutions that you wanted to be a part of. You were drawn to them and you wanted to be a part of what everyone was doing, and like to not be doing the plays with everyone would have been so crazy to me. It's like I have been doing them my whole life. I've now replaced my wooden sword and bath towel cape for the finer Renaissance fair, you know, at the Shakespeare Festival. But I mean, I was moved by many. Yes, I had a lot of movie stars and idols and things like that. But I said people moved me most like my parents and my teachers. And I'd seen some great performers, met some actors who really inspired me. And you know, so I would say being open to allowing yourself to being enlightened and seeing beauty and things around you will go a long way. Making a strong impact on you. What will motivate you as an artist?
And you know, hearing Marcus say that makes me think of, I had some really great voice teachers. And especially when I went to grad school, I was in a 3-year master's program. And my voice teachers, we were working on various things using Shakespeare. And I remember saying one time, just getting so frustrated because they kept calling me out on my Texas eyes. And I was like, finally I kind of was like, it's not even a matter. It's not like I'm going to be a voice actor or something. Like, I'm here to say that I didn't realize the gift I had been given until later. There's a video actually. There's a VHS video of me in high school talking about like how someday maybe I would be famous and I would come back to my little town. And it's like me going, and maybe when I come back, they'll have prayed for me. I have such a thick accent, and that is what my training did for me. And what that did was it opened me up to a whole world of possibility that wouldn't have been possible with the voice I had, you know. Crazy. Prayed. Like there's no A there. Prayed.
We only have time for about 1 or 2 more at the maximum questions. Yes, in the back there. Yes, you.
So I know as dubbed voice actors, you constantly do dub lines by yourselves, even like the scene with multiple people. I know that Japanese voice actors, they would do voice acting with multiple people in the same room. Do you think that would enhance or deteriorate your voice acting performance for like a scene?
It might enhance. I think, though, it would be difficult technically. just because they're trying to match up our lines to something that's already in existence. And so if I was delivering my line, but Marcus sort of cut me off, his voice is on my line, and as they try to move it to fit it to the flaps, it's not going to fit his flaps. Do you know what I mean? So it's a technical issue there.
Yeah, I agree. If we were dubbing something, it would not really be of value to have a second actor there to act off of, because we are kind of acting off of the frame rates and if it's an open mouth flap, is it a closed mouth flap, is it, there are different ways we are gauging our delivery. But if the thing was not animated already, it would be of great service to us to run a scene many times and us be sitting here. And that's a lot how Pixar, things like that works. They will sit down and then Pixar will use some of the mannerisms that come out and all that. So yeah, we have time. But yes, I would, if it's not animated, we have time for one last question. Sorry, we're running long. Yes.
Well, I've answered this one earlier today, only because I've never talked about this show as much as I have this weekend. A magical shopping arcade Aburabashi. Sashi, he's a boy, and it's all these worlds, they're going between worlds, and at one point he has to go to the bathroom. So he walks to the edge of the world, and the image is of yellow water going off into space. And his words are, oh man, there's just something so sci-fi about pissing off into space.
I would say my favorite line, Space Dandy, is problems up the wazoo, get your ass to Wahoo. Anything you need to know, just go out, just go out. Wahoo answers, y'all. All right, y'all, that's all the time we have. Thank you. Come on, Anime Midwest. You guys are beautiful. Thank you.